December the 11th. Let's get today's show started. Frontier opening bell. I am Bosin Omofaye, and of course, joining me this morning on the show is Orelu Adetunde, the macroeconomic policy analyst at Greenwich Merchant Bank. Thank you, Orelu. It's good to have you on the show, madam.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'll just take through the markets very quickly. As always, then we have quite a lot to discuss about the latest World Bank report on Nigeria. Of course, the stock market softened 1.27% as the central bank yesterday rolled out 4.1 trillion naira in special bills at the treasury bills market. Fixed income space, 0.5% yield. That took the major hit on the banking sector and insurance stocks yesterday. The banking sector fell the most, hit by this particular development, which the central bank, of course, talked about a week or two ago. The stock market in Ivory Coast was up by 1%. The Egyptian market, Kenya, and South Africa softened on Thursday as we step into the final trading day of the week. In East Africa, the International Finance Corporation is investing 1.5 billion shillings in Ugandan drug maker to get all part of the whole pharmaceutical drug industry up and running. Kenya's Madawa is partnering AstraZeneca on virus vaccine. The whole world is talking about this. Nigeria has also been ordering that all the isolation centers be reopened as the second wave of the virus knocks on Nigeria's door. East African Breweries Limited has appointed a female managing director, the first ever, Ms. Jane Karuku. Effective January the 1st, the Kenyans are taking more women, putting more women in the C-suite within the country. And Mozambique inflation at 2.8%, much higher than before. Food index at the doorsteps of 10%. In West Africa, the Nigerian story with the World Bank yesterday was the big one about what the Nigeria needs to do to move forward. The World Bank highlighted 5 key points areas for the Nigerian government and says there's a request by the Nigerian government for a fresh $1.5 billion to the World Bank to fight COVID-19. That will be presented to the executive board of the bank next week. And Senegal's French construction company Vinci is building 25 billion CFA from hydroelectric dam. That will be a major project within the West African country of Senegal. Orelu, let's talk about, you are in charge of macroeconomics, and do you agree with some of the prognoses that the World Bank officials stated in this new report on Nigeria?
Yes, yeah, we completely do. I mean, it was a very interesting report. I think a 93-page report on, the Nigerian economy, and it further explained what needed really to be done and how, if some of those actions were not taken, we're likely to see a prolonged recession, and the country was Nigeria is expected to contract about 4% in 2020, and in 2021 we may see a recovery of about 1.1%, which is quite marginal compared to the growth progression we have been after exit of the after the exit of the recession in 2017 Q2. So, I mean, there were a number of things that were mentioned. I mean, it was even compared to, the 1980 shock, and, where we're seeing similar traits of that, being, it's been affected in, this 2020 recession we're currently going through, capital controls, rising inflation, heightened levels of unemployment, susceptibility of the oil and the oil markets to, the global crude oil markets, refineries which are still remain in shambles, really not doing so much. So it was really a lot to contend with. It was really a lot, and I think the body further explained that they were expecting that personal incomes will fall back to where they were 40 years ago. That was 4 decades ago. So we were expecting that contribution of heightened level of inflation. The rising inflationary pressures, which seems not to be abating currently because of the structural issues that we're still having, might still linger. So I think it further highlighted that until we see some very unpopular policies from the government, physical responses that would further, dampen some of these current challenges that the economy was facing, then we might not likely see, we might see a prolonged recession. I think that was how it was stated in its report. So yes, he mentioned that we needed to see the move to a more free float currency for the naira. We needed to see changes to the tax system. We need to see more changes again. Looking at the export base, we need to see much growth reforms in the Nigerian economy. But you also have to look at where is the government currently looking towards for growth. And I think we've seen the current administration has sort of looked towards the agricultural sector. Yes, we're seeing things like the Anchors Borrowers Program and other kind of interventions being put into place, to more or less alleviate, some of the painful stakes that some of these farmers have taken, some of the problems they have faced, especially during the COVID-19 period, the disruptions, the supply chain disruptions, the cost of inputs, the FX challenges that have happened. But I think one complaint that a lot of these farmers did have was that this funds did get to them at a particular lead time, or the affordability of the cost of the inputs, which were even further subsidized. So we're still seeing that even that sector that is still being faced, they still need to do so much for that sector. It's still highly vulnerable. It's still highly vulnerable to a lot of structural factors.
Interesting. The report by the World Bank actually acknowledge some of the steps that the Nigerian government has taken, for example, like subsidy remove, power tariffs, crisis response to the COVID-19, the debt transparency, of course, seeing that through the debt management office and a whole lot of that. This looks like the first step of things to be done. But the second phase is where and for me, this reprioritizing public spending is one major area that seemed to be one toiling area that the government at all levels has not been able to do, in terms of how do we reprioritize public spending and cut huge wastes away from it to free the much needed capital, and so that we can even have projects that are done much faster and much cheaper and delivered very quickly. It looks like it takes a whole lot of time to deliver projects. Even when we look at Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, the Lagos, the whole lot of projects, it looks like, yes, the money is there, but we don't move very quickly. Did you get that yesterday?
So yes, it did. I think yes, like you said, that it did mention that we're seeing a move towards some of these things, but I think we're still going to see some setbacks even to some of the changes of some of the policies that we're seeing, because we still have some of these social groups that are still coming around, and this is because of the effect to the final consumer and to the purchasing power of a lot of individuals, especially in 2020. It was a very hard year. I mean, we've had these fragilities in the economy. I think COVID-19 just further exacerbated what we're going to see. Yes, we're having so much more reliance, but we needed to see more. We need to see more growth boosting reforms, more or less, to some of these other sectors. But it's clear, it's more or less clear. Yes, we might be seeing a move to some of them, but we might still see a lot of setbacks. And we know that, for one, implementation, it's one of those things that we more or less struggle with in the Nigerian economy. So we might foregoing, we expect that this root of some of these challenges for that is when we see the European Union, the economy, especially because of our susceptibility to the oil markets. We might still see a bit more improvement. Oil prices would probably fare better. A little bit of more improvement. Maybe trade deficits, which is currently the highest we've seen it at, might further narrow down. There might still be a bit, but maybe not as much as we expect. I think that was why it peaked for 2021 at about 1.1. Pessimistic compared to where the monetary policies were at.
Okay, let's look at the I'm going to switch very quickly to the Southern African space and the numbers that we're looking at in terms of the current account deficit or current account surplus for South Africa is very surprising. 5.9% of the third quarter GDP, the highest level in percentage terms since the third quarter of 1988. That looks very good. But good news again from Rwanda on how inflation came down from 7.2% in October to 4.2% from October to November, and food inflation down from 9.7% to 4.7%. The whole approval for the virus vaccine by South Africa is going to be quickened according to the health authorities in Pretoria because of the second wave of the virus. In terms of where we are in Nigeria, Oreoluwa, let's bring this home. The news this morning was that the authorities in Nigeria says the isolation centers should be reopened. It looks like the second wave is knocking at our front door. Do you see that?
Yes. So, I mean, I think, yes, we might likely see a wave, a second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we also know that now there's a vaccine, but, procurement of this vaccine might likely be an issue when it comes to Nigeria. But I think it was also announced yesterday that, Nigeria will probably be getting a vaccine by January 2020, which is a positive. South Africa is also still claiming that, they are beginning to see a second wave of COVID-19 cases. I think what we saw, especially around the world, was this pandemic fatigue, where people really got tired of keeping to safety protocols, and decided to throw caution in the wind. And you're walking around, people without their nose masks, people just not taking proper precautions. They'll go for an event, everybody's been sandwiched in a particular room and everything. So and I think another thing that really did affect the Nigerian economy, and what we might cause another increment, is because I think the level of literacy. So you had people who mentioned that they did not believe that the COVID-19 even existed, or because they didn't really know anyone who had the virus, so they didn't really have anything to allude it to. So it was just as if it was something from the Western world, and something which was not real, and something which was just looking to exploit some funds from different economies. So yes, we might likely see a second wave. We don't think will be hard as hit as maybe the Western world was. We're still seeing that level of testing is still not as good as what we're having there, and doing a COVID test in Nigeria is about 50,000 if you want to do it privately. And how many people are willing to do, even if they're having some signs, or willing to even go to the NCDC and saying they want to have a test and things like that? They don't want to be cooped up in some of the isolation centers, so they just stay back, self-treatments, and things like that. So yes, we might see a second wave, but we don't expect that it might be as intense as it has been. I mean, what is the current rate of the active cases? We're currently having about 4,000 to 5,000. It's still in a good position compared to some of our peers.
Yeah, so it's a whole lot of scenario out there, and we just want to hope that those who don't believe that the virus exists and what have you will have their way. In other words, because what it will otherwise take is for folks to start dropping dead on the streets, and perhaps everyone will take to their heels, and then everyone will go inside and lock themselves up in their inner room. Maybe that's what they're waiting for, but we cannot wish that for Nigeria, and not for any country in the world where the number of fatalities. But it's understandable, because again, in terms of data and statistics in Nigeria, because we have a largely unstructured economy, we don't know how many we are as in population. We don't know the guy who lives next door. We don't believe also in the hospital system, as it were. So folks just buy drugs on the street side, or take some local medications, and the next day they get well, or the third day they get well, or they go for some prayers, as it were, and suddenly everything is okay. So the believability of science here is a problem for a population that is largely half literate and illiterate. So when you have a huge population of illiterates and half literate people who are not exposed to science, and who believe in that, look, once you pray or you do whatever locally speaking, you'll be well. It's a fight for science here, and it looks like the government is also driving this home. So it's a culture thing. cultural, religious thing is the key problem here in terms of this believability and very deeply entrenched poverty, in which people believe that what else do I have to lose? I've been living for poverty for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So what else is left? So they don't tell me about any virus from one laboratory or one vaccine laboratory is going to cure it and whatever. You guys go deal with that. I guess that's where the real problem really lies. We just hope that we don't get to pay very dearly for these mindsets and nuances. I just hope we don't pay dearly for it. That's just everyone's prayer here. Let's check in with the Northern African market, shall we, with the Moroccan stock markets moving on with the Casablanca new MSI Index 20 that was unveiled a few days ago on December the 8th. And closing the 3-day Africa Economic Conference of the EFDB, announcement of $50 million facility for Africa's renewable energy. The Suez Cement is approved voluntary delisting from the Egyptian Stock Exchange. Very soon we'll say goodbye. The directors and the shareholders says they've gotten an approval to self-delist from the exchange. And speaking still to pharmaceuticals and drug making, Nipro Corporation in Japan is setting up in Morocco as Nipro Medical. Epico Pharmacy gets Egyptian's drug agencies, EDA's license for a new Egypt production pipeline. Finally, with you, Oreoluwa, it looks like everyone is getting in on this pharmaceutical drug making business, worldwide speaking. Look at the story from Morocco, look at what South Africa is also working on, look at Egypt. So do you think we're on track with what the central bank mainstreaming interventions in the healthcare sector now as the way forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with what's happened this year, I think we did see that, there's this level of aversion, there's this need, there's this very high level of importance that the health system is properly developed in a lot of economies. So I think COVID-19 pandemic was a realization of that effect. We saw that earlier this year, a couple of interventions, especially from the CBN, tailored towards of the pharmaceutical sectors, research and development and other things like that are expected to bode well for the pharmaceutical sector. But like we just normally say, that sector still, there's still a lot of vulnerabilities in the sector generally. We're not seeing, that level of funding, that level of advancement towards the sector. Yes, we might probably see a change with COVID-19, but we expect this, to be somewhat slowed. We expect it to be somewhat slowed. I think one thing that's synonymous with the economy that when something initially happens, yes, it happens, it affects us, but we do not really guard against it when it's expected to come next. So, we've passed through it, and let's go right through it if it comes again or something like that, which should not be the case. So, yes, so we should be able to see some improvements, but we expected this to still be slow.
I think in a manner of speaking, I'm beginning to think that the Nigerian leaders and the elites, in a manner of speaking, are beginning to see this pandemic as a lesson point. Perhaps it gets to a point in which there is so much problem out there and they can't travel out for medical attention. So perhaps the time has come for them to say, hold on a second, I think we better start building local healthcare industry and drugs, because right now, if you get such a problem that you can't take on easily on a flight, and perhaps it's going to take weeks for you to be quarantined before you can see your doctor, even if you go to Germany or London or wherever, and perhaps it's not even safe to go out there. What happens to me here? So perhaps this self-preservation kind of mindset will get Nigerian leaders and the elite.
So I think it's a little bit optimistic on your part, but okay.
But maybe sometimes we just wish at the back of our minds that, look, something could just keep them here, and to build infrastructure here, to build a healthcare system, to build all that they need to build the educational system. Look at how much money we will have, and the forex and the foreign exchange flow, that was money that will stay within this economy. If we can take out all the medical tourism, we can take out the educational, whatever money we're forking out to South Africa, Russia, Ukraine, universities, UK, whatever, and keep them at home. And even invite folks from outside to even attend our universities and our healthcare system. I'm a little bit optimistic, but maybe it's going to happen sometime soon in the near future.
It's a long road down the line.
It's a long road down the line, but maybe the virus, the COVID-19 is a cutting razor in that direction. I just hope so, and I pray so. Thank you so much, Aurelio Adetunde, for being my guest today on Frontier Opening Bell. Do have a great Friday and a great weekend ahead. Thank you so much, and see you again next week. Thank you. Bye.